So I am Treasure McKenzie, the director of Muskogee Bridges Out of Poverty in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I want to just share with you how our community and Bridges program decided to continue with getting ahead classes when the pandemic started in March, and some of the decisions that we had to make to be able to do that successfully. And so at the time when things kind of started shutting down, we were already 8 sessions in to our 20 weeks of classes and had to make some quick decisions. We were already familiar with the platform of Zoom, and so we decided to take our next class online. We had a lot of questions, a lot of worries, and one of the questions was, can we figure out Zoom? Will our investigators have smartphones, devices that they can use? And it turns out yes to both of those. We were able to figure out Zoom. We were able to make sure everyone had a smartphone or a tablet. Some people even had a school-issued laptop that they were using, maybe their children had assigned to them, and they were able to use those. The next question was, does everyone have access to Wi-Fi or enough minutes on their plan to be able to do a class online? And it turns out that our investigators are amazing problem solvers, and they were able to each figure out a solution. And so some of our investigators had to get in their car and drive to McDonald's and use the Wi-Fi in the parking lot. Some used a local church and used the Wi-Fi there, or the library. So people were really creative, and they were able to figure out how to use their device, get online, and be able to Zoom into our meetings. Another question we had was, would our investigators stay committed? You know, they had gone through these 8 weeks, they had bonded as a class, and so we were worried about once we went online, would we lose that personal touch? And the answer, for us at least, was no. We didn't lose any of our investigators through the class. So some decisions that we had to make: we are fortunate enough to have a paid childcare staff, and we knew at that time we would have to essentially lay those childcare workers off for the rest of the semester, which was unfortunate, but most of those people are teachers who this was their secondary side hustle job. And meals, we had a food team. We were cooking for around 120 people every Tuesday night. We decided to no longer do meals, partly for safety, others because our food team that cooks the food was made up of graduates, and some of them, 2 of them, are cancer survivors, and we didn't feel it was safe the way we had it set up, so we were no longer doing meals. Our staff while we were familiar with Zoom, we had to then turn around and kind of learn how to do Zoom techniques and make sure that everybody was comfortable, and being the presenter, and making sure that we could teach the investigators how to raise their hand, how to mute themselves, things like that. And so it took a week or so to just get comfortable doing that. And another question we had was, how are we going to get our monthly gift cards, which is what we use for stipends, to our investigators? And it turns out we were able to do that very easily. We had them come to the office at the end of the month on Friday. We put their gift card in an envelope with their name on it. We opened the door and kind of slid it through the door to them, and it worked out just fine. So what were we worried about? We had a lot of worries at the beginning. How is this going to work, and is it going to be okay? And one of the first things we ran into was Zoom etiquette. Sometimes when a family is in the tyranny of the moment, there's a lot of things going on, there's some chaos, and now this is a whole new platform for them. And so with the Zoom etiquette, we had to create like a 1-page sheet of tips and tricks for Zoom. So if you are going to be in this class, don't have the phone propped up against the wall while you're washing dishes. Don't be cooking a meal. Don't be driving your kids somewhere while you're trying to do this class. We want your undivided attention for the whole class. And so you need to center the camera, center yourself in the camera, look directly at the camera while you're in class. Give us your full attention, and try your best to keep the camera still. Those kinds of things needed to be addressed, and keep yourself muted so we can minimize distractions in the background. So those things we've addressed in a 1 sheet. We go over it in the beginning. If we need to go over it again a few times throughout the class, we do. But for the most part, once we addressed those issues, they weren't an issue anymore. Future storyboard night was one of my concerns. At the end of our semester, we kind of throw a party, and we have hundreds of magazines, and we buy cardboard stand-up storyboards, and we have markers and scissors and glue, and we have a music going and food, and we kind of have a party, and everybody creates their future storyboard. And I was really thinking, oh man, how are we going to do this without the opportunity to do it in person? But it turns out the way we did it online was so much more effective. We asked them to create their future story in any format that they wanted. They could write a paragraph or a book if they wanted to. They could draw it on a piece of paper. They could create their own storyboard at home, but they would need to present it in front of the camera during the next class. And those presentations were phenomenal. They were so cool, and it worked out so much better than what we do in real life. So it actually turned out to be a great thing. I was worried about how we would do a graduation if we couldn't meet in person. And so at the time, we were hoping that the pandemic would be wrapping up by the time graduation started, and it really, in fact, didn't. And so we just didn't have an actual graduation. We celebrated online, and then we created little gift bags with a journal and a pen and some thank you cards and things inside of it, and asked them each to come and pick up their gift bag at the end of their class. And so there are different ways that different communities are celebrating across the nation, and it's really cool to see all the cool ideas that are coming. So in the next class, I think we're going to do something a little different, but we're not quite sure what yet. So my number one concern is relationships. Can a class truly bond online, not only halfway through, but when we start another class from the beginning? And the answer is absolutely. And so the facilitator sets the tone. If they are authentic and vulnerable, that will set the tone for the class. And the minute they become that way, everyone else seems to follow and will be much more open to sharing and their story and just being part of the class, and they do actually bond. Same opening and closing rituals plus hand gestures. So some of the same things we were doing in our regular Getting Ahead classes, we were able to continue online. At the beginning, we were able to talk about new and goods, talk about something new or good that happened to you this week, or list as some kind of change that you've gone through that was a positive change and how you were connected to it. That starts the meeting off on a positive note for everyone. At the end, we always do some kind of appreciation and gratitude. There's lots of different ways we can do that. Sometimes we'll just say, everybody say one word that describes the feeling you had about this class tonight, or what need of mine was met during this class tonight. And so ends on a good note as well. And then something we learned from Toledo, Ohio is hand gestures. If someone is telling a story or talking about something that I care about, or I want to show that I care and I am in solidarity with you and I just am sending you my love, you can easily do a hand gesture, and each class can have their own, but this means, hey, I'm not speaking because you're speaking, but I do care and I see you. And so little things like that can make a really big difference and really help them to bond as a class. And because we get to have a little window into your world because you're probably at home, we get to meet your family, we get to see your kids, we get to meet your pets, and that just adds a little bit more closeness to the whole group. So moving forward, we are about to start classes again in August, and this time we will go full virtual. And so we are doing our interviews on Zoom or on FaceTime. And that helps us to actually lay eyes on the person who is the applicant, get to really know them a little bit, ask them the questions in person. And if they aren't able to use Zoom or FaceTime, they may or probably aren't going to be able to do the class that way as well. So those have really helped us when we are trying to figure out who would be a good fit for the class this semester, knowing that it is all online. And the coolest new thing is that AHA Process is helping us by providing some new tools for online trainings. And so they are creating PowerPoint visuals for us that match the Getting Ahead books and fillable forms that we can send to them, and they can actually fill them out themselves and hit the submit button. And I'll show you what that looks like. So the PowerPoints kind of look like this. Now, of course, these the investigators have their book in front of them, and so they will be looking at these things, but just it's nice to have something on the screen to follow. Things like this, the debt to income ratio, is just a chart that we use, and it's in their book as well. But as you're looking at this in the book, you can also point to things on your screen. And then you will come across a link. This is a link to a form that they've created for us, which takes the next activity online and is easy for everyone to do. So what you will do on the screen, you would click on this, and it will take, and you would actually get this link to your investigators, and it will take them to something that looks like this. So as you can see at the top, they write in their name, and then they write in their email. Underneath that, they will write in the email of their facilitator. And then you can go in and you can see that you can answer the questions. So this one just happens to be the debt to income ratio calculator, and they can fill this out. But there are many other forms like this. For instance, the assessments. They can do the assessments this way as well. And at the bottom, you can see there's a submit button, and they can submit this and it will go email straight to your facilitator. And then from here, the facilitator can do what they want with that information. For us, we would then take this and put that directly into Charity Tracker. So it's making it so much easier to be able to connect with them online and get some of these things accomplished. So how do you get this information? Getting Ahead virtual webinar and e-forms are all available at AHA Process. Oh, I need to go back one so you can see it again. ahaprocess.com/GA virtual. That's where you can get this information. It's brand new. And of course, if you have any questions, you can contact Lynn Jackson at Bridges or at AHA Process, and she will be happy to help you. Here's her contact information, and I'm sure that you can get a hold of her and just by going to the AHA Process website.